All right, good morning, good morning. I thought we were already live, but I got a note that we weren't live yet. So, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Chalk Talk. So, what you probably missed was the good stuff I was telling you about what's happening around the National Football League. Today starts well, we're almost tomorrow starts the fourth quarter of, no, that's not true. Anyway, we're in the third quarter of the year, right? It's winding down. And what I was saying is that one of the things that really excites me about this time of year is all that's happening. Okay. You have the NFL regular season about to start. We're set to start in another 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. NBA season, teams will be reporting to training camp in less than a month. The Major League Baseball season is winding down to postseason, right? The Houston Astros, the team I cover, has a 6 game lead in the American League West and for over the closest team, and they're in first place in the American League West. And college football is getting started. The U.S. Open Championship started on yesterday. It's just a fun time of year, right? It's about to be fall. A lot is happening, and so we're going to talk about some of that today. One of the things I want to start out with is if you've tuned in and seen anything on the sports ticker or come across your phone today, the big sports story is that Cam Newton has been released by the New England Patriots. They've decided that Mac Jones, their first round pick out of Alabama, is going to be the starting quarterback when the season opens. So that's interesting. And what it says is that obviously Mac Jones has separated himself during camp. Bill Belichick saw something that said, you know what, this guy's ready. He's our future. And perhaps the conversation was we don't want a former league MVP, a former number one pick as a backup, right? Because we don't know how he would handle that, he being Cam Newton, and how Mac Jones would handle it. I don't know if that's the conversation in terms of why they released Cam Newton. And maybe it was that for all accounts, my understanding is that Bill Belichick had a tremendous amount of respect for Cam Newton when he came to this Patriots team, and maybe, just maybe, Belichick went to Cam and said, "Listen, we're going with Mac. He's going to be our starter. What do you want us to do?" Maybe Cam wanted to be released so that he would get a chance to hook on with another team. I don't know what the answer is, but what we do know is it is. It is the story that has people talking. I'm going to let you hear from Adam Schefter a little bit about that move. Also, we're going to talk today about some moves, some people that may or may not be on teams this time tomorrow. Today, by 4 p.m. Eastern, the teams have to be down to their 53-man roster, and they can start working on who clears waivers and can be placed on the practice squad, on their 16-man practice squad. With that said, it's a busy day in the National Football League. Yesterday, we had a chance to visit with Texans Coach David Culley, and I'll let you hear a little bit from David Culley. Also today, I'm going to let you hear, I'm starting a new segment called When the Crowd Stops Cheering. You may have heard me talk about it in the past. It's a documentary that I will produce and work on, and I'm going to do some interviews in that segment, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what when the crowd stops cheering means. And you don't have to just be an athlete to experience the crowd, for the crowd to stop cheering. And the point of this segment is to share some stories and hopefully share some encouragement, and so that you can navigate what happens in your life when your crowd stops cheering, whatever that may look like for you. Okay, so all that's coming up today. As I mentioned, the U.S. Open, Naomi Osaka is back in action. She played yesterday. She won last night. I'm going to let you hear from her in a post-match interview. So we have a lot to get to today. So thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. Make sure you share the video and let people know how much you enjoy the show, and ask them to join us. All right. So I'm going to start by letting you hear from Adam Schefter, who talks about what happened with who talks about, who gives his thoughts about the Patriots releasing Cam Newton and what may have gone into it. Here is Adam Schefter.
Adam, give us the latest on this decision by the Patriots to cut Cameron Newton and make Mac Jones the starter. Well, first of all, you heard Max say the Patriots using a first-round pick on Mac Jones, and I would say that the 49ers, when they traded away 3 first-round draft picks, moved up with the idea that they were comfortable taking Mac Jones, but that they would do their due diligence into Trey Lance and Justin Fields, and wound up falling further in love with Trey Lance before they took him, leaving Mac Jones to slide all the way to New England at 15 without the Patriots having to give up any additional first-round picks. And from the moment Mac Jones stepped in there this summer, he looked like he was a guy ready to take over. He led 8 preseason drives this summer, 8. Every one resulted in either a field goal or a touchdown. There was not a single drive this preseason that he initiated that they didn't score on. He impressed coaches with their accuracy. Spoke to one head coach last week who told me that he thought that Mac Jones could be and would be a Pro Bowl quarterback in this league for 10 years. And I'll be honest, I fully thought that he was going to wind up as the starting quarterback on opening day. What I didn't expect was that the Patriots today would release Cam Newton. But what that tells you is they are so sure of Mac Jones that they felt like it would be unfair to have Cam on the roster. They've got Brian Hoyer, a capable backup there in reserve. And so rather than put Cam in a position that might be a little bit awkward, they thanked him and said, we are ready to go with the youngster. The new Patriot era begins now.
So that is Adam Schefter. Let me get back to you over here. Hold on. There we go. Okay.
He was a guy ready to take over. He led 8 preseason drives this summer. 8. Every one resulted in either a field goal or a touchdown. There was not a single drive this preseason that he initiated that they didn't score on.
All right, so that is Adam Schefter, and he is talking about Cam Newton and Mac Jones. And so I think there are still questions we don't know the answers to yet, but we will hear maybe at some point from Bill Belichick. We don't know how much he'll say, but and maybe at some point we'll hear from Cam Newton. I'd love to hear from you. Where do you think Cam Newton ends up? It will be difficult to go into a place a week before camp and learn a new offense. So if he's going to be a backup, people may ask, well, why could he be a backup with the Patriots? And I think the things that Adam Schefter mentioned about, having a former league MVP, having a former first-round pick on the roster may be difficult to handle, and you don't want to have that tension with your rookie quarterback. That could be the case. We will have to wait and see. But so today's a big day. Today is a day that the NFL teams start making those cuts. And it's also the day that there are some people who will see their football hopes kind of dimmed, right? They will expect an opportunity to play on a team. They'll get released, and then they'll begin trying to find a spot to catch on in the season. Not everyone that's released today will be done for the season, but this is where it begins. And this is one of the things I think it's important to mention about that players have to deal with, right? We see they make a lot of money, they play on Sundays, they're always on television, and all those things are true. But there's the other side, right? You playing in a position, being a veteran, and then somebody saying, you can't play here, we don't have a spot for you here. What does that translate to? What does that sound like? And to some people, it sounds like you're not good enough for us. And that creates a bunch of other internal stuff. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm going to talk about when we do in this new segment, When the Crowd Stops Cheering. Some weeks we'll have a guest, former players or people who can speak to it. And other times I'll share some interviews and just some thoughts about situations. And what I would say to you is this: while I may use athletes in this segment, or coaches, or people in the sports world or world that it could be any of us. Like, I can think of many times in my life when the crowd stopped cheering. And fortunately for me, I've always known that the things I do, whether it's in television or being vice president of the Super Bowl, those are jobs I've had, those are things I do. It's not who I am. So from an identity standpoint, it wasn't a crisis for me, but you do feel it when the crowd stops cheering, when people are not nearly as excited that it's you on the other end of the phone, when people are not always calling asking for you, you're having to then call and pitch to them. It's something that a lot of people, especially post-pandemic, where we're not really post yet, are having to deal with. So that's really the essence of what when the crowd stops cheering is. Before I get to that, I want to let you hear a little bit from Texans coach David Culley. The Texans played their final preseason game on Saturday night. They lost to Tampa Bay and the Buccaneers. This defense, which has looked good throughout the preseason, as safety Justin Reed said, Tom Brady did Tom Brady things. And so I would also say Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator, did Byron Leftwich kind of things in terms of the plays he called. That team is good. That offense is good. And it gave a good indication of where this Texans team may or may not be. And while I like Lovie Smith, I like what he will do with the defense. I like the fact that this defense has bought in. It's just a reminder that this is going to be a challenging year for the Houston Texans. I think that they will compete, and they may catch some people by surprise because most people expect them to be really way down at the bottom. I don't know. We'll have to see. But here's head coach David Culley talking about making cuts, which again will come. The final cuts will come today. They did release third string quarterback, although they don't like to call him third string. I guess in preseason, he was clearly the third string quarterback, Jeff Driscoll. They released him on yesterday.
Oh, it's tough. And what makes it even tougher is that when you've had the competition that we've had with all the new players here, the depth has been really good. It becomes even tougher because we're going to end up having to cut some guys that we feel like are good enough to play for us. But because of the numbers game, you got to make those moves.
How does the ability to bounce Titus back outside, or know he has familiarity at tackle, affect your kind of calculations on the offensive line if Cannon is not ready to?
Well, what it does, it helps us from the standpoint of knowing that he can go outside because of his versatility, because some of the other guys are basically as a guard or as a tackle or as a center. But with his versatility, that allows us, when you're sitting down making decisions on guys that maybe can only play one position or that they're more comfortable playing at one position, having guys like him and some of the other guys that have switched all during training camp really helps in determining. That's a factor in determining some of the other guys that you end up keeping or you don't keep.
So that's David Culley talking about making cuts and it being a difficult decision. He got the question, I'm not going to play it again, I posted it to my social media yesterday, about Deshaun Watson. And of course he said there's nothing new there. It's nothing new there. He was also asked about if it's difficult that you have to keep a roster spot for Deshaun Watson. And let me just say this. If David Culley hasn't said this to me, I don't know him like that, not that he ever would say it to me. The David Culley responses to the Deshaun Watson questions are clearly responses that he's been told to make. I believe that. I don't think that those decisions about how you respond to the Deshaun Watson questions come from him. David Culley, from everything that I've seen, having a chance to cover him throughout training camp, he is as forthcoming and as honest as he can be. That is an issue that they are being very careful how they respond. And so when he's asked about it, he says, yeah, I don't have anything new to report. And so he was also asked, how do you feel having to give up a roster spot to Deshaun Watson? Is it difficult? So he pivoted back to it being difficult making cuts, period. But here's the thing, you guys. They don't have a choice. They have to carry Deshaun Watson on their roster. Are they going to release Deshaun Watson? He's got guaranteed money. And if you release him, he doesn't make it through waivers. So you would lose him and get absolutely nothing for him. So, no, they're not going to release him. Yes, he will take up a roster spot. I had somebody ask, well, can they put him on the practice squad? He would have to clear waivers. That's never going to happen. The other question I got was they could hide him on the injury report. The league's a little smarter than that, right? You're going to have something that says that you're really injured. You can't just put a guy on the injury report, especially in this situation. They're going to get him checked out. So the Texans really don't have an option right now until there's some decision about Deshaun Watson, he will be on this roster because the Texans have too much to lose if they, in fact, were to release him. So that's not an option. So I wanted to just make that clear. And as I remember in the offseason, I thought David Culley, listen, I like the guy. And I think that he walked into a situation that has been difficult. He handles it professionally. And I think that they're going to get the best out of the team that they have. I think we know that this is not a super talented team in terms of flat out just talent. And so, listen, we all have had to work with things sometimes on our jobs or in our businesses that may not be the ideal situations, and we had to make the most of it. I think that's what David Culley and his staff is going to do. Here is David Culley talking about this team and how he feels about this Texans team.
No, we're going through that right now. Today, tomorrow, right after practice, we'll sit down and we'll go over those things again. And, we kind of got a little idea of how things may shake out, but right now we're still going through the process.
As you get closer to the 53 and you see kind of how it's shaping up, what do you think of the team that you guys have put together for this moment?
Well, I think that the versatility of the guys that we've had here, with the depth that we've had here, makes it so much easier on us in being able to do that. And, again, that's what makes it also hard, too, with letting some guys go, because we feel like that there's been good competition and guys are close. But depending on, also injuries and those kinds of things moving forward has a lot to do with that also. What I think of the team? Oh, I'm looking forward to this team. I like what this team has done during the training camp and during the preseason games. Other than the last game of us turning the ball over so much, I've been really, really felt good about this football team.
So that's David Culley talking yesterday to us before practice. He's talking this morning, but he'll be talking during Chalk Talk, so I'll have to catch the tape. I know I will be there later today and talk to some players after practice. But, it'll be interesting, as we sit around and watch practice. Those of us who are there, we're trying to figure out, like, who's on the bubble, who makes this team. Well, one of the moves that they made over the weekend, I guess on Sunday, was they traded Shaq Lawson. They made a deal for Shaq Lawson, and so Culley talked about that. He also talked about the tight end position and the versatility it gives them. I'm gonna let you hear from David Culley, and then we're gonna go to my some other things I think you'll be interested in.
It's been a very consistent group, and I think the very encouraging thing about why we were able to run the ball so well this past ball game was because of those guys, the versatility that they've done. And and basically we went into that game wanting to make a conscious effort of doing that. We used Pharaoh in the backfield as a fullback at times. We used Anthony the same way. Same thing with Jordan. And it's been comforting to know that we want to be able to have balance running the football when we want to run the football. And as I said earlier, those guys are a big part of that. And this past weekend, I think that showed.
David, could you talk about the Shaq Lawson trade?
Well, we felt like we made that decision simply because of the situation. We keep the best players that we feel like that's going to plan good for us at this time. And Shaq happened to be in a position with a position group that's a lot of depth. And basically, when we make decisions on players, we make decisions on who we feel like is playing the best at that time. And we felt like those other guys were playing the best at that time. And it was a situation where we could make our team better by making that trade, and it just happened to be Shaq.
That's David Culley, Texans head coach David Culley, talking about the move with Shaq Lawson, talking about the tight end position. And so I don't know what moves they make. I'm going to tell you some things that I think. I think at running back, I think it's time to make the move away from David Johnson. Now, I know that David Johnson had a couple nice runs on Saturday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just think it's time to move on from him. He's not terribly consistent, and you see that occasionally. But I think to hold a position for David Johnson, I just think it's time to cut your losses. If you can get anything for him, I think that'd be amazing. I don't know what you can get for him. He's a cap hit. I think the numbers, I don't remember if it's somewhere between $4.5 and $6 million, if I remember correctly, without looking at it. So we'll see which running backs they keep. Obviously, Scotty Phillips, we saw him. I think he's a young player that you have to keep. I think if you release him, I don't think he clears waivers. You can't even get him back and put him on your practice squad. I'm not sure about Lindsey. He hasn't been incredibly impressive during this camp. There's so many questions. Yeah, I think Mark Ingram probably makes this team. And there's some others, right? There's a lot of people that come to camp, so it'll be interesting to see which ones make the team. For those of you who are just joining me, welcome. Thank you all for being a part of Chalk Talk today. I appreciate you always tuning in and sharing your comments and questions. And in terms of whether or not the Texans would pick up a Cam Newton, I'm going to go with a no. I don't see them doing that as a backup. Now, should they is another thing, but they have released Jeff Driscoll. I've been saying throughout the entire process of camp that they need another veteran. What I imagine about what will happen with Deshaun Watson and this Texans team for as long as he is here, he will be inactive every week. So you're going to go into games with Tyrod Taylor being your starting quarterback. While they haven't mentioned it, but he will be the starter, and Davis Mills being the backup. If Tyrod goes down, so then you have Davis Mills. I think that Davis Mills has improved during camp. I think that he was a third-round pick for a reason. I don't think he's there yet. And I don't think you want to be in a situation where that's your option. I'm okay with Tyrod Taylor leaving this team. I hope the best for him. He's had some tough breaks in terms of injuries and just some kind of weird things happening. We know that he can start and lead a team. I mean, and let's be clear. This is not going to be a championship team, right? But we're talking about how competitive can this team be, and what they look like on the field each week, right? And what gives them the best team to really, really compete. So right now, obviously, it's Tyrod Taylor, but I just think they've got to find another veteran. The challenge is you already got to carry three quarterbacks because you've got Tyrod and you've got Davis, and you have to carry Deshaun, even though you make him inactive each week. I mentioned earlier why you can't release him, because you can't afford to give him up for nothing. And we've all got to know that if you release Deshaun Watson, he doesn't even clear the waiver wire. And now you've got nothing. And if you think your fan base is disheartened, and if you think you are not respected as being a good football organization, you can't do that. And not that those are the reasons. It's just not a good business move. So that's not going to happen, right? Deshaun Watson will be a Houston Texan until they make a deal with another team to move him. That's just what that is. So Cam Newton, I don't know where he lands, but I don't think his career is over. I think the whole, COVID misunderstanding, I don't know what that is, but I know teams need you to be available, right? And there's some coaches that firmly believe that you're only as good as your availability. If you're not available to us, you're not helping us. So I don't know what that is, but all the best to a Cam Newton. I want to share something that I saw yesterday on Twitter that I think kind of it gives you a sense of what I mean when I talk about when the crowd stops cheering. Okay, it is this tweet that, and you may not be able to see it real well, that Jenna Lane made at ESPN. And she said it isn't talked about enough, but athletes often go through a really dark period when they retire. The death of a dream, but also the fear of having to start over and be a beginner again when you've known one thing your whole life. That's why J.R. Smith's tweets matter so much, right? And so I've been following J.R. Smith, a basketball player. She goes on to say, it isn't just athletes who experience this, but that's who I've had most of these conversations with. That's what I was saying earlier. When the crowd stops cheering is what I call it. When you've been extremely successful at one thing your whole life and it's gone, there's a real fear of, will I ever be great at something again? What if I fall flat on my face? I think that's a great entree into what I'm talking about when the crowd stops cheering. And I want you to hear from J.R. Smith, an interview that he did with the station in North Carolina about what he's doing right now. So here is he talks about golf and North Carolina A&T University. Here's J.R. Smith. Okay.
Well, Ray Allen kind of convinced me. We had a little golf trip in DR, and he was talking about some of the things he was doing about going back to school and challenging yourself and stuff for us athletes. And I really took heed to it and decided to go back. And one of the best liberal studies programs is at A&T, and it just so happens I got deep roots in Carolina with Chris Paul and C.J. Paul. And after that, it was just, just things started trickling down, just trying to figure out if I still got eligibility, so see what's going on there. And but more importantly, just try to educate myself, do something after basketball. They always told me I could go back whenever, when I was coming out of high school, so this is whenever for me. The patience it brings you to, it kind of, golf is one of those games that can, have you feeling really high, or it can bring you down to your knees to humble you. So to have that feeling and knowing that all of the game is pretty much on my own hands, and I don't have to worry about teammates to pass the ball to and receiving passes and playing defense. So I can just play my game and just have fun.
What's your handicap there?
Right now I'm a 5. It's not where I wanted to be yet. So playing with coach and some of the guys on the team has been getting helpful. I started playing about 12 years ago. The late Moses Malone taught me how to play. So down in Houston, I was working out with John Lucas and during the summer times and stuff like that. So it's been a journey.
Have you picked a major then?
Yeah, liberal studies.
And you're going to start August 16th as your first class?
18th, I think.
18th.
Yeah.
So ready for that?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been in school, so I'm excited though. It's new challenges. I get to really buckle in. I got nothing but free time now, and between raising kids and going to school, my schedule's pretty full. It's very special. I can't wait to be a part of an HBCU family and to really been embraced by everybody on campus so far. I can't wait to see the students and start going to some of the football games and start really, repping Aggie pride.
That was
With Melio payments, you can.
that was J.R. Richards. I keep saying J.R. Richards. That was J.R. Smith. So a few things from that clip that I want to make clear. So he's playing golf now, right? He wants to play competitively at AT&T, maybe if he has some eligibility. But he's going back to school, and he's majoring in liberal studies. And so if you follow him on Twitter, he is the real J.R. Smith, I believe is what he goes by. And let me pull it back up. Yep, he's a real J.R. Smith, and he is sharing kind of his journey, right? He's talking about along the way, he's talking about what he's doing now. He's talking about his, learning, and he says it's not the same, playing like he's playing golf now. It's not the same. You don't get paid. You don't have to act like you like them for the way they treat you while you're making money on the team. He said, I'm not making money in college off of frat, right? He's having these different conversations about just his journey. And I guess somebody asked him to join a fraternity. So you see this conversation with him. He is the real J.R. Smith on Twitter if you want to follow him. But he talks about he told somebody, tell me why should I join a frat? Can somebody explain to me why I should do that? He said to him it doesn't really make sense. I'm supposed to join a group and call them my brothers after they treat me like crap and they do crazy stuff. How does that work? These are real honest conversations that I'm sure many of us have had, but it's just cool to see. And so I think it's good to follow that and understand it, because he is doing, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to do? And I don't know that he's talking about going on the golf tour, but he is in school and he's studying. He's studying in liberal studies, liberal arts. I guess it's called liberal studies at North Carolina A&T. And I just think that's very cool for J.R. Smith. So I wanted to share that with you. When the crowd stops cheering, and people may still sort of cheer for him, but he's not a star. He's not one of the guys in the NBA that you're wondering if they're going to help you win a championship. He's moved on to the next thing in his career. So, yeah, congratulations and kudos to him. And I'll keep you updated, and I'll share you stories about other players as they transition and do other things that in hope can inspire young players who may see the show, and also inspire you if you are trying to figure out how to make that transition to the next thing you do, because the crowd has stopped cheering maybe on your job, maybe in your relationship, maybe in your home, and maybe in your business. And you've got to figure out, what do I do to kickstart it? What do I do to restart my own crowd, to be my own crowd? What do I do to make this next jump? So thank you, J.R. Smith, for being an example of that. And who would have thought that we'd be talking about J.R. Smith this way, but you just never know. I mentioned that the U.S. Open tennis tournament got started on yesterday. Naomi Osaka won her first round match, which is no big surprise. And this is Naomi after the match. It's the first time I guess they played in front of crowds, because last year there were no crowds when she won it. So that is Naomi Osaka, and she won her first round match. She won it in straight sets, 6-4, 6-1. Some other winners yesterday. Coco Gauff won her first round match. Sloane Stephens, who faced Madison Keys, won her first round match. That match, I want to say, let me see. Let me find it. I think it did go to 3 sets. I know Coco Gauff won in 3 sets. She lost the first set 5-7, then she won 6-4, 6-3, 6-4. And where is the Sloane Stephens? Sloane Stephens and Madison Keys. So Sloane won in 3 sets. She won the first set 6-3. She lost the second set 6-1. And then she won the final set 7-6. 9-7 in the tiebreak. So that's what's happening at the U.S. Open in Flushing in New York. Hopefully at some point this week I'll let you hear from Zina Garrison, our very own tennis legend in real life. She is at the U.S. Open doing radio, and hopefully she can join us at some time over these next while she's there. It may not be during Chalk Talk, but I may play a cut of it. We'll probably do some IG lives with her and get some updates from her about what's happening in at the Open and some stuff that she's seeing. So one of the things I want to make sure that I do today before we get out of here, and I'm going to also go over, I know many of you have had questions and comments. I think it's really, really important to stop for a moment and just to say salute our troops. We don't do it enough, and there's been so much talk over the past couple weeks, and especially the past few days, about what's happening has been happening in Afghanistan. And I think the problem with that is that we don't talk about war enough while it's happening. Okay, it's been a 20-year war. And I think that some of the conversation, and I blame the media for some of this. We check out because there's some new controversy, and we go on to something else. But if the truth is told about that war, it's a war that we've been losing, and I don't know that it's a war that we went in with an opportunity to, a real clear plan of what that looks like. And I think it's something that means that we as a country have to figure out really who we are, and is nation building what we should do. And as I'm not an expert on war, I have done a lot of reading about what's happened in Afghanistan, and understanding that we really understand the culture, the tribal culture and nature of Afghans, and the fact that they wanted, they didn't really want our system of a centralized government. That's not who they are. They do more. They have a lot of different language. They have a lot of different tribes and groups, and I just think that sometimes if we're going to go in and think that we're going to make somebody be who we think they should be, we're missing the point. And so what I want to say is, for all of those of you who have served in wars, not just Afghanistan, but we appreciate your service, thank you. And for those of you who have lost people along the way, we are so grateful for your sacrifice, because people who join the armed forces. It's them and their families who sacrifice when they go off to war, when they're away. And so we've seen a lot about these 13 brave service men and women who were lost in the suicide bomb attack recently. And rightfully so, we're talking about them and just the sacrifices of their families. One of the men, I believe, was about to become a father for the first time. He won't get a chance to meet that child. That child won't get a chance to meet his father. I'm sure that's been the case with a number of people. But my point of all of this is that that we do a better job of supporting our veterans, right? When they come home. The fact that the number of veterans that end up having a lot of mental issues that commit suicide because we're not caring for them the way we should. And that's my concern. I care about the Afghans. I do hope the ones get out that were helping us, that want to get out, that the rest of the Americans there that are left are able to get out. But when our veterans come back from war, we have got to do a better job of supporting them and embracing them and providing for them, right? It is not just enough to provide for people from other countries, for refugees or people who come here. I think that's great. But we've also got to do a better job of managing our own democracy and of making sure that we're caring for the people who are right here in these United States and who are making it possible for us to move around, even in the chaos that we're in right now. And it's some chaos, people, with a level of freedom that doesn't exist a lot of places. So I wanted to make sure that we salute the troops before I get out of today's show. And thank you guys for always being a part of the show. So good morning to everybody. Thank you for those who have had comments and who, I'm looking at some of them. I talked about the Cam to the Texans. I don't think that would happen. Would he go to the Washington football team? Not really sure. And Cam has a lot of, Marcus says he has a lot of, he's eccentric and there's a lot to manage. Even his writing on Twitter, he's a very, very strong personality. Yeah, that means he probably would not be a good fit for this Houston Texans team. Hey, Yolando and Cedric and Jackie and Charles and Kimberly and Ellen, my sister, and Marcus and Sylvia, Cedric, of course. Davis Mills is not a starter. He is not. Not yet. They are trying to get him there. He's not quite ready yet. And Sylvia, it's not that no one wants Deshaun Watson. I think it's a matter of the uncertainty, not knowing what his availability would be. I know there are teams that are very interested. There's reports that the Miami Dolphins have been making overtures for the Texans and the Texans aren't responding, or that the Texans want too much. I don't know how much of any of that is true. He is definitely a guy that will land someplace. But if you're another team who's thinking about bringing him in without knowing what the NFL will decide or when the NFL will decide something, it's difficult. And I understand that. So he definitely is wanted. And we're not going to let anybody tell us differently. He's wanted. People would like him. You're right, Charles. We owe our troops a more defined intent and goals. And to be honest with the American people, because we've heard generals for years say, we're turning the corner, we're almost there. And what we saw is that when the troops, the people started being moved out, it became clear that this deadline was really, really real, that President Biden, who, by the way, even as vice president, thought we were fighting a war we shouldn't be in. And while it may have looked very chaotic, it did look chaotic, the way that we saw the war ending and just the people converging on the airport and just the sheer chaos and fear. Of course, that was conversion. But let me say this. War is messy. And I don't know how you get out of a war that you're losing. And I think that's something that we as Americans have to come to grips with. We were losing that war and we have been for a long time. How do you get out of a war that you're losing clean? Some of the unfortunate consequences of war is the chaos we've seen in recent days. And so I just suggest that we continue to support our troops and that we continue to support the president, who I think is doing what he told us he'd do. And not just because I said I would do it, I'm hell bent on it, but because it's ultimately what's best. How much longer should we have stayed? Another month, another year, another decade? The truth is, and I'm going to end with this about that war, A lot of contractors made a whole lot of money. We lost lives. There, what, $2 trillion is the thought of the amount of money that was spent. And there are people who made a lot of money. There are companies, and I could start listing them, but there's no point in that, who've made a lot of money off war. And so war has been profitable to some. And it's been detrimental to others. $2 trillion could have paid for our health care, right? Could have taken care to make sure that our Medicare system is solid, and that our Social Security for people who've worked their whole lives and expect that it's in place. That there's not all this expense for people to go to college, and that we're able to do more about our homeless situation. $2 trillion could have taken us a long way on this new infrastructure bill that people were fighting and didn't want to vote for. And so I just think that we have to be mindful and be smart. Like, be smart as we are making decisions and making comments about what's happening as it relates to this country. And the very last thing I will say is the democracy that I am most concerned with right now is the democracy right here in these United States. Our democracy is hanging on by a thread. And so voting rights matters. The infrastructure bill is great, but if we don't get voting rights, none of it matters. So you want to talk about democracy to me? Talk about it right here in the United States. We've got to get this democracy right before we can really start trying to impose our thoughts about democracy on places around the world. Hey, thank you guys for being a part of Chalk Talk. Make sure that you do share the video. I'll see you next Tuesday right here on Chalk Talk. Follow me online, Twitter at Kim Y. Davis, and then of course on Facebook and YouTube, Chalk Talk with Kim. And I will see you. Of course, if you would like me to discuss something, or maybe there's somebody you'd like to see on Chalk Talk, inbox me, send me a DM, or email me. You can email me, Kim at KimYDavis.com, and I will, where is it? There's my email address, Kim at KimYDavis.com. Shoot me an email and say, hey, I enjoy Chalk Talk. I would like to see this. And I will check it out and see if it's something we can do. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great, great day. Remember, get vaccinated. If you happen to live in Houston and Harris County, today is the last day that you'll be compensated for getting the vaccine. You know, I was trying to see if they did back pay for those of us who got it earlier, but if that's what it takes to be your incentive, today is the last day. If you take the first shot today, you get $100. And when you take the second shot, you'll get $50. So you get $150 to protect yourself and your family and people around you. Get vaccinated. Make sure you're wearing a mask. If you've got kids, make sure they're putting on masks, because kids are getting this virus, y'all. They're getting sick. Practice social distancing. Use your hand sanitizer, and just be safe. All right. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you next time. Do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. See you next time.